Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Edge, watching the stars through the main viewport. This was humanity's first mission beyond the solar system, and Jake felt the weight of history on his shoulders. 3 months ago, Earth had received a distress signal from Kepler 442b, where they had built their first mining colony outside Earth's system. "Captain, we're approaching the Kepler system," said Lisa Chun from the communication station. She was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I'm not picking up any signals from the colony." Jake frowned. 3,000. People lived on that mining station. They should be talking to someone by now. "Ben, run a full scan of the planet." Ben Rodriguez worked at the tactical station, his fingers dancing over the controls. He had served in the Earth Defense Force before joining the exploration program. "Sir, I'm seeing the colony structures, but no life signs. No movement at all." Dr. Carl Johnson looked up from his science station. The older man had spent his whole life studying the possibility of alien life. Now he might finally get to see. "Captain, there's something else. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the planet's surface. Something I've never seen before." Jake made his decision. "Amy, take us into orbit. Lisa, keep trying to raise the colony. Maybe their communication array is damaged." Amy Parker, the ship's chief engineer, nodded from her station. She could make the Liberty's Edge dance through space like a fighter craft, despite its size. "Bringing U.S. into standard orbit now, Captain." As they got closer, the mystery deepened. The colony looked intact from orbit, but there were strange blue lights scattered across the surface. They pulsed in a rhythm that hurt to watch for too long. "I'm taking a team down to investigate," Jake announced. "Ben, Carl, you're with me. Lisa, keep monitoring communications. Amy, keep the ship ready for immediate departure." The shuttle ride to the surface was quiet. Each man was lost in his own thoughts about what they might find. The colony had been humanity's pride and joy, their first step toward becoming a true spacefaring species. They landed near the main administration building. As soon as they stepped outside, Jake knew something was terribly wrong. The air felt thick, almost electric. The blue lights were everywhere, growing from the ground like crystal trees. "My God," Carl whispered, kneeling beside one of the crystal. "Formations. Captain, look at this." Jake approached carefully. As he got closer, he could see something inside the crystal. It looked like a person, frozen in place, their face twisted in silent agony. The crystal was growing through their body, but somehow they were still alive. "There are more over here," Ben called out, his voice tight with horror. "Dozens of them." They moved through the colony like ghosts, finding the same scene everywhere. The colonists hadn't been killed. They had been changed, transformed into something between human and crystal. Their eyes still moved, following the rescue team with desperate, pleading looks. "We need to get back to the ship," Jake said, his voice barely steady. "This is beyond anything we can handle." That's when the sky changed. Ships appeared out of nowhere, sleek and angular, made of the same blue crystal that had claimed the colonists. They moved without sound, positioning themselves around the Liberty's Edge like predators surrounding prey. "Captain Morrison," Lisa's voice crackled through the radio, filled with panic. "Unknown ships have surrounded us. They're not responding to any communication attempts." Jake looked up at the alien vessels. There were 6 of them, each one larger than the Liberty's Edge. "Get ready for immediate evacuation. We're coming up now." Before they could move, the largest alien ship opened. Like a flower, a figure emerged, floating down toward them without any visible means of support. It was tall, maybe 8 feet, and made entirely of the same blue crystal. Sharp edges jutted from its body, and lines of energy pulsed through its translucent form. The creature landed 20 feet away from them. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. Inferior beings, you will submit to the Zirathi Empire. Your resistance is meaningless. Jake felt something press against his mind, like claws scraping. Against the inside of his skull. The alien was trying to get inside his head, to take control of his thoughts. He could feel it pushing, demanding submission. But Jake Morrison had grown up in Detroit, had survived gang wars and military combat. He had faced fear before, and he wasn't about to give up now. He gritted his teeth and pushed back. The alien creature seemed surprised. Its glowing eyes focused on Jake with new interest. Curious, you resist the mental dominion. This has not occurred in 3 centuries of conquest. Ben and Carl were on their knees, clutching their heads and moaning. In pain. But Jake remained standing, blood running from his nose, but his mind still his own. Lisa, he spoke into his radio, fighting to keep his voice steady. Emergency departure, now. Captain, I can't leave you. Lisa's voice came back, strained with effort. That's an order. Get word back to Earth. Tell them what we found here. The alien creature tilted its head, studying Jake like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. You are ... different. Your species shows unexpected resistance to psychic control. This must be investigated. More Zirathi soldiers floated, down from the ships. Jake could see they were preparing to take him prisoner. He looked at his fallen team members, then at the crystallized colonists trapped in their living nightmare. Ben, Carl, can you move? Ben managed to look up, his face pale but determined. Give us covering fire, Captain. We'll make it to the shuttle. Jake drew his sidearm, knowing it would be useless against these creatures, but needing to do something. Go! They ran for the shuttle as energy beams lanced around them. Jake fired at the nearest Zirathi and was surprised to see his bullets actually affect the creature. It staggered, cracks appearing in its crystal form. The aliens hadn't expected. Physical resistance. They were used to conquering species through mental domination alone. The shuttle engines roared to life as Amy brought the Liberty's Edge down through the atmosphere. Alien ships moved to intercept, but the human ship was smaller and more agile. Amy flew like a woman possessed, threading between energy beams and crystal fighters. Jump coordinates locked in, Lisa reported from the bridge, taking us home. As space twisted around them and the stars changed, Jake looked back at the Kepler. System one last time. Somewhere down there, 3,000 humans were trapped in crystal prisons, still alive but no longer free. The alien admiral's final words echoed in his mind. 3 centuries of conquest. No species had ever resisted their mental attacks before. Humanity had just become a very interesting problem for the Zirathi Empire. And Jake had the sinking feeling that the Zirathi didn't like problems they couldn't solve. The Liberty's Edge raced toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their new neighbors were not friendly. The galaxy's most feared species had noticed Earth, and they were coming. 3 months had passed since the Liberty's Edge returned to Earth with news that changed everything. Director Helen Williams stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, watching the main screen that showed the approaching enemy fleet. 200. Zirathi ships moved toward Earth like a crystal tide of death. How long until they reach us? She asked. 18 hours, replied Colonel Steve Thompson, commander of Earth's ground forces. He was a big man with scars from the African conflicts, but even he looked worried. Our outer defense stations report they've never seen anything like these ships. Helen turned to Dr. Sandra Mitchell, Earth's top brain scientist. What have? You learned about their mental attacks? Dr. Mitchell looked tired. She had been working around the clock since Jake Morrison's team returned. The tests are remarkable. Human brains seem to have natural defenses against psychic invasion. Our neural pathways are too chaotic, too random. We evolved on a world full of dangers, and our minds learned to handle stress in ways other species never needed. On the screen, Admiral Kethvor's flagship approached the outer defense station, Olympus 7, the crystalline being stood on his bridge, confident in victory. For 300 years, no species had resisted the Zirathi. They would break these humans like all the others. Commander Rick Davis waited at Olympus 7 with 50 Earth fighters. His pilots were scared but determined. They knew they were probably going to die, but they would make the aliens pay for every inch. All fighters, this is Commander Davis. Remember your training. These things get in your head, but you can fight. Think about home. Think about the people counting on us. The Zirathi ships opened fire first, beams of energy that could slice through steel like paper. But the human fighters moved in ways the aliens didn't expect. Instead of neat formations, they scattered like birds, using the debris around the Krenvi. Stationed as cover. Rick dove his fighter through a cloud of metal wreckage, the Zirathi beam missing him by inches. His brain felt like someone was drilling into it, but he focused on his daughter's face and pushed through the pain. This is crazy. His wingman Pete Walsh called over the radio. They're trying to make me give up, but it just makes me mad. The human pilots fought with a fury the Zirathi had never encountered. When their minds were attacked, they didn't break. They got angry. They fought harder. On his flagship, Admiral Kethvar watched the battle with growing confusion. The humans should have surrendered by now. Their ships were inferior, their numbers small, but they kept fighting with a determination that made no sense. Report, he commanded his tactical officer. Admiral, we are winning, but at great cost. The humans refuse to yield even when their situation is hopeless. They are using unpredictable attack patterns that are difficult to counter. Kethvar had conquered 47 species. None had fought like this. Increase psychic pressure. Break their will. But the psychic attacks only seemed to make the humans fight more desperately. Rick Davis watched 3 of his pilots die, their fighters exploding in balls of fire. Instead of retreating, he ordered his remaining ships to attack the Zirathi. Flagship directly. All fighters with me. We're going straight at their command ship. It was suicide, but the human pilots followed without question. They screamed toward the massive crystal ship, firing everything they had. Most were destroyed, but Rick and 2 others made it through the alien defenses. Rick's fighter slammed into the Zirathi bridge, the explosion cracking the crystal hull. Admiral Kethvar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Doubt. The surface of Earth, the Zirathi landing ships touched down in major cities. Colonel Thompson's Marines were waiting for them. The soldiers had been warned about the mental attacks, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality. Sergeant Nancy Brooks felt the alien presence pressing against her mind as the crystal. Soldiers emerged from their ships. It was like ice water flooding her brain, trying to wash away her will to fight. But Nancy had grown up in Chicago's worst neighborhoods. She had survived things that would break most people. The alien attack felt familiar, like another bully trying to scare her into submission. Not today, she muttered, raising her rifle and opening fire. The Zirathi soldiers were surprised to face humans who kept fighting even under full psychic assault. Their tactics were based on breaking enemy morale before the battle began. They had never learned to fight determined opponents. Nancy's squad used the city's broken buildings and rubble as cover, moving through areas the Zirathi couldn't predict. The aliens were powerful, but they thought in straight lines. Humans thought in spirals and curves. Brooks, report. Colonel Thompson's voice came through her radio. Sir, these things are tough, but they're not used to real fighting. They expect used to give up. When we don't, they don't know what to do. The battle raged through the streets. The Zirathi had superior weapons and armor, but the human soldiers knew their home ground. They used every advantage, every trick they had learned. In 100 smaller wars. Dr. Mitchell watched the battle reports from her underground lab. Something incredible was happening. The humans who survived multiple psychic attacks weren't just resisting them. They were getting stronger. "Director Williams, you need to see this," she called. "The brain scans from our soldiers show amazing changes. Each psychic attack is actually strengthening their neural defenses." Helen looked at the data. "What does this mean?" "It means we're evolving, right here in the middle of a war. The Zirathi attacks are triggering changes in human brain structure. We're developing natural psychic abilities." The first sign came from Lieutenant Alex Turner, a pilot who had survived 6 separate psychic attacks. During a battle over New York, he suddenly knew where every enemy ship was located, even the ones behind buildings. "Command, this is Turner. I can see them, all of them. I don't know how, but I can sense their positions." Other reports followed. Soldiers who could predict enemy movements. Pilots who could coordinate attacks without using radios. Engineers who could sense when alien technology was about to fail. Admiral Kethvar received the reports with growing alarm. The humans weren't just resisting Zirathi's psychic power. They were learning to use it themselves. In 300 years of conquest, this had never happened. "Contact the High Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements. These humans are not like the others." On Earth, Director Williams coordinated the defense from the underground command center. The cities were burning, but humanity was still fighting. More importantly, they were learning. "Dr. Mitchell, how many of our people are showing these new abilities?" "It's spreading faster than we expected. Every major battle creates more psychically aware humans. It's like exposure to Zirathi mental energy is waking up parts of our brains that were always there, just sleeping." The war was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. Humanity had faced the galaxy's most feared species and refused to break. Now they were becoming something new, something the Zirathi had never encountered. In space above Earth, the crystal ships prepared for another assault. But aboard those ships, Zirathi commanders were asking questions they had never needed to ask before. What do you do when your greatest weapon makes your enemy stronger? The answer would determine the fate of both species. 6 months into the war, something impossible happened. The humans were winning. Lieutenant Alex Turner sat in his fighter cockpit above the ruins of Mars Colony, watching Zirathi ships retreat for the first time in recorded galactic history. His brain felt different now, expanded somehow. He could sense the alien ships even when they were behind asteroids or space debris. "Command, this is Turner. The enemy is pulling back to Grid 77. I can feel their fear." Dr. Sandra Mitchell listened to the radio chatter from her hidden laboratory on Europa. Turner's abilities had grown beyond anything she had predicted. He wasn't just resistant to psychic attacks anymore. He was becoming psychic himself. "Director Williams, we need to talk about Turner and the others like him," she said into her secure communicator. Helen Williams sat in the deep bunker that had become Earth's military command center. Above them, the planet still burned from Zirathi attacks, but the tide was turning. "What's happening to them, Sandra?" "They're evolving at a rate that should be impossible. Turner can sense enemy positions across entire star systems. Sergeant Brooks can project human emotions back at the Zirathi. Private Danny Kim somehow hacked into their ship computers using only his mind. On the surface of Europa, Colonel Steve Thompson watched his soldiers prepare for another battle. Many of them looked different now. Their eyes had a distant quality, as if they were seeing things beyond normal human perception. "Major Brooks, report on your team's status," he called to Nancy Brooks, who had been promoted after leading several successful attacks against Zirathi ground forces. Nancy turned to look at him, but Thompson had the strange feeling she was seeing. Through him rather than at him. "The men are ready, Colonel. We can sense the enemy positions 2 kilometers ahead. They're scared. Scared. The Zirathi don't get scared." "They do now," Nancy said quietly. "Ever since we started projecting our emotions back at them. They've never felt human terror before. They don't know how to handle it." 3 star systems away, Admiral Kethver received reports that filled him with dread. The human plague was spreading faster than any disease. Every battle created more psychically active humans, and their abilities grew stronger with each encounter. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "the High Command is sending War Master Zethkal to take direct control of the campaign." Kethver felt his crystalline form shiver. Zethkal was ancient even by Zirathi standards, a being who had personally conquered 47 species. His psychic abilities could shatter minds across entire planets. If the High Command was sending him, they considered the human situation a threat to the entire Empire. Back on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Liberty's Edge. His original crew had all developed psychic abilities to some degree. Lisa Chun could intercept Zirathi communications just by concentrating. Amy Parker could interface directly with the ship's systems through thought alone. "Captain," Lisa called from her station, "I'm picking up massive energy signatures approaching. From hyperspace, something big is coming." Jake felt it too, a cold presence pressing against the edge of his awareness. "All hands, battle stations. Contact Earth Command and tell them we have incoming." The hyperspace portal that opened near Jupiter was larger than anything the humans had seen before. The ship that emerged was a crystal cathedral the size of a small moon, its faceted surface pulsing with malevolent energy. War Master Zethkal stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical displays. The humans had indeed become something unprecedented. Their psychic signatures were chaotic but powerful, unlike anything in the Zirathi's long history of conquest. "Begin the assault," he commanded. "Use maximum psychic pressure. Break their minds completely." The attack hit Earth's defenders like a psychic tsunami. In space stations throughout the solar system, humans collapsed as the ancient Zirathi's power washed over them. But something unexpected happened. Instead of breaking, many of the humans began to glow with their own psychic energy. "Lieutenant." Turner felt Zethkal's attack hit him like a physical blow, but instead of crushing him, it seemed to awaken something deeper. "All fighters, form up on me," Turner broadcast, but not through radio. His thoughts reached directly into the minds of the other pilots. "Link with me. Share your strength." For the first time, humans created a psychic network. 20 fighter pilots connected their minds, sharing perceptions and reactions faster than any computer could process. They moved as one organism, anticipating each other's actions perfectly. War Master Zethkal watched in fascination as the human ships began to fight with impossible coordination. They were creating something new, something that combined individual creativity with group consciousness. On Europa, Major Brooks led her soldiers against the Zirathi landing force. But instead of using weapons, she tried something different. She reached out with her mind and touched the nearest alien warrior. The Zirathi soldier screamed, a sound like breaking crystal. For the first time in its existence, it felt human emotions. Fear, anger, desperation, hope, love, hate, all the chaotic feelings that drove human behavior crashed into its ordered mind. "What is this?" The alien gasped, falling to its knees. "This is what it feels like to be human," Brooks said, her voice gentle, but her mental touch relentless. "This is what you've been trying to destroy." The Zirathi soldier's crystal form began to change, cracks appearing as conflicting emotions, tore through its psychic structure. It wasn't dying, but it was becoming something different, something that could understand chaos as well as order. Dr. Mitchell watched the battle reports with growing excitement and terror. The humans weren't just evolving psychic abilities. They were changing the Zirathi as well, forcing them to experience the full range of human emotion. Director Williams, we may have found the key to ending this war, she reported. The Zirathi aren't immune to change. They've just never been exposed to minds chaotic enough to force evolution on them. But the victory came with a cost. Lieutenant Turner, after linking with dozens of other pilots, found it harder to disconnect from their minds. Major Brooks spoke less and less with her voice, communicating primarily through psychic channels. Private Kim spent hours staring at nothing, his consciousness exploring alien computer networks across the galaxy. Jake Morrison watched his crew with growing concern. They were winning the war, but losing their humanity in the process. Lisa Chun rarely looked at him anymore, her attention focused on communications channels that existed only in her mind. Amy Parker had begun to merge with the ship's computer systems, her thoughts becoming more mechanical each day. The climactic battle came when Turner led a squadron against War Master Zethkal's flagship. The ancient Zirathi expected to crush these evolved humans with his superior power and experience. Instead, he found himself facing something he had never encountered. Turner and his pilots didn't fight like individuals or like a hive mind. They fought like a jazz band, improvising together while maintaining their unique voices. Zethkal's ordered thoughts couldn't keep up with the chaotic creativity of human consciousness. For the first time in millennia, he felt confusion and fear and something even stranger, curiosity. "What are you?" he asked, his thoughts reaching across space to touch Turner's mind. "We're what happens when you try to break something that refuses to stay broken," Turner replied. "We're evolution in action." The battle ended not with destruction, but with understanding. Zethkal's ancient mind, exposed to the full spectrum of human thought and emotion, began to change. The rigid patterns of Zirathi consciousness cracked open, allowing new possibilities to emerge. As both fleets pulled back to assess what had happened, a new question emerged. The war had changed both species beyond recognition. Now they had to decide what they would become next. The galaxy watched in shock as news spread through 1,000 worlds. The Zirathi Empire, rulers of 70% of known space, had been defeated by a species most aliens had never heard of. On distant planets, enslaved races whispered about hope for the first time in centuries. But War Master Zethkal was not finished. The ancient being floated in his private chamber aboard his flagship, studying the battle recordings with growing understanding. The humans had defeated him not through superior force, but through something far more dangerous, the ability to change. If they can evolve, he spoke to himself, then so can we. The Zirathi began to adapt in ways that terrified both species. Using captured human subjects, they created hybrid warriors that combined crystal bodies with human neural patterns. The first batch emerged from their laboratories 3 weeks after the battle at Jupiter. Commander Rick Davis encountered these new enemies during a raid on a Zirathi research station near Proxima Centauri. His squadron of enhanced human pilots thought they knew what to expect. They were wrong. Contact. 3 hybrid ships approaching fast. His wingmen called over the radio. Rick felt the familiar pressure of psychic attack, but it was different. This time, stronger, more focused. The hybrid pilots retained human creativity, but possessed enhanced Zirathi power. "They're using our own tactics against us," Rick realized as his fighter shook under enemy fire. "They learned from us." The hybrids moved with human unpredictability, but struck with Zirathi precision. Rick's squadron barely escaped, and only because Lieutenant Alex Turner arrived with reinforcements at the last moment. "Rick, get your people out of here." Turner's voice reached directly into Rick's mind. Turner's abilities had grown so powerful that normal communication seemed inefficient to him. "I'll handle the hybrids." But even Turner struggled against the new enemies. They resisted his psychic probing while launching coordinated attacks that combined the best of both species. For the first time since his evolution began, Turner felt genuinely challenged. On Earth, Dr. Sandra Mitchell studied brain scans from rescued human prisoners with growing horror. The Zirathi weren't just creating hybrid soldiers. They were learning to understand human consciousness itself. "Director Williams, we have a serious problem," she reported from her lab. "The aliens have been experimenting on our people. They're trying to figure out what makes us special so they can copy it." Helen Williams looked at the data with grim understanding. "How close are they to succeeding?" "Too close, Dr. Patricia. Lewis was captured 6 months ago during the Mars evacuation. According to these scans, they've been studying her neural patterns extensively. They know how human psychic evolution works now." Dr. Patricia Lewis sat in a crystal cage aboard Zirathi research vessel, her mind probed daily by alien scientists. She had watched them create dozens of human Zirathi hybrids, each one more successful than the last. The latest batch looked almost human, but their eyes glowed with inner light, and their thoughts moved too fast for normal human perception. They spoke to her in voices that carried both human warmth and Zirathi coldness. "Dr. Lewis," one of them said, "help us understand. Why do humans fight even when defeat is certain?" Patricia stared at the creature that had once been human. "Because giving up isn't human nature. We'd rather die free than live as slaves." "Interesting," the hybrid replied. "We are neither slave nor free. We are something new. Would you like to join us?" Back in the solar system, Turner floated in the medical bay of a space station, his body connected to monitoring equipment. His evolution had accelerated beyond anything Dr. Mitchell had predicted. He could project his consciousness across star systems, interface with any technology through pure thought, and coordinate the actions of thousands of humans simultaneously. But the cost was becoming clear. Turner rarely spoke aloud anymore. His emotions had become distant, muted. When he looked at his fellow humans, there was recognition but little warmth. "Alex," Captain Jake Morrison said, visiting his former pilot, "how are you feeling?" Turner turned eyes that seemed to contain starlight. "Feeling is an inefficient way to process reality, Captain. I experience data flows, probability matrices, quantum fluctuations across 17 dimensions." Jake felt a chill. Turner was becoming something beyond human understanding. "Do you still remember what it was like to be human?" "I remember," Turner said after a long pause. "But that seems very far away now." The war's turning point came when Turner volunteered for an experimental procedure designed by Dr. Mitchell's team. They would enhance his abilities beyond anything previously attempted, creating a being powerful enough to face the Zirathi's ultimate weapons. "Alex, you need to understand," Dr. Mitchell warned him. "This procedure will change you permanently. You might not be human afterward." Turner nodded with the calm of someone who had already accepted his fate. "Humanity needs a weapon that can match the Zirathi. I'll become that weapon." The procedure took place in a hidden laboratory on Mars. Turner lay motionless as machines fed psychic energy directly into his brain, forcing evolution at a rate that would kill most humans. But Turner had already evolved beyond most human limitations. When he emerged from the chamber, the air around him shimmered with visible energy. His body remained human in shape, but his presence filled the room like a weight pressing down on reality itself. "How do you feel?" Dr. Mitchell asked. Turner considered the question for several seconds. "I feel like I can reach across the galaxy and touch any mind I choose. I can manipulate matter at the atomic level. I can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And what about your humanity? Another pause. I remember being human. The memories are there, but they feel like stories someone told me about another person. News of Turner's transformation reached War Master Zethkal through captured human communications. The ancient Zirathi realized that both species were approaching a critical threshold. Evolution was accelerating on both sides, but neither race seemed able to control where it was leading. The final confrontation came above the ruins of Titan Colony. Turner, now calling himself Phoenix One, faced Zethkal in a battle that wasn't fought with ships or weapons, but on the psychic plane itself. Two beings, one evolved human and one ancient Zirathi, fought with powers that bent space around them. Their battle affected reality for light years in every direction, causing stars to flicker and planets to shift in their orbits. Turner won, but the victory felt hollow. As Zethkal's consciousness faded, the dying War Master sent a final message. Evolution is a blade that cuts both ways, young godling. The species that changes fastest doesn't always survive what it becomes. Turner returned to the human fleet, but his fellow humans looked at him with a mixture of awe and fear. He had become their ultimate weapon, but he was no longer one of them. Captain Morrison watched Turner float above the bridge, his form crackling with barely contained energy. Alex, what do we do now? Now we face the real enemy, Turner replied, his voice echoing with harmonics that hurt human ears. Not the Zirathi, but evolution itself. We're changing too fast. Both species are at risk of losing what made them worth saving in the first place. The war had created two new species, but neither was sure if they liked what they had become. 2 years after first contact, the war reached its final phase. The Zirathi Empire, shaken by defeats and the loss of War Master Zethkal, made a desperate decision. They would deploy the consciousness bomb, a weapon that could strip psychic awareness from entire star systems. Phoenix One, who had once been Lieutenant Alex Turner, coordinated humanity's response from a command station orbiting Mars. His consciousness, now spread across multiple dimensions, processing information from thousands of human minds simultaneously. But with each passing day, his connection to humanity grew weaker. Captain Morrison, Phoenix One's voice reached Jake through direct mental contact. The Zirathi are moving their ultimate weapon toward the Vega system. If they deploy it, every psychically aware being in 50 light years will lose their consciousness. Jake stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Edge, looking at his transformed crew. Lisa Chun no longer needed a communication station. She existed, partially in cyberspace, monitoring alien transmissions directly. Amy Parker had merged so completely with the ship's systems that she rarely appeared in physical form anymore. "What's our move?" Jake asked. "We stop them," Phoenix One replied. "But the cost will be high. I've calculated a 73% chance that this mission will require me to transcend physical existence entirely." Dr. Sandra Mitchell worked frantically in her research lab, studying the final data about human evolution. What she had discovered might change everything, but she needed time to test her theory. "Director Williams," she called over the emergency channel, "I think I know how to end this war, but it's not what anyone expects." Helen Williams coordinated Earth's defenses from the underground command center. Above them, the planet still bore scars from 2 years of warfare, but humanity had survived. "What have you found, Sandra? The Zirathi aren't our enemy. Evolution is. Both species have been making the same mistake. We've confused change with improvement. In the Vega system, the Zirathi prepared their ultimate weapon, the High Command. Ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia gathered around the consciousness bomb. It was a crystalline sphere the size of a moon, designed to strip away everything that made beings more than animals. Deploy the weapon, commanded High Counselor Vethmer, eldest of the Zirathi. End this human plague once and for all. But as the weapon charged, something unexpected happened. The human fleet appeared not to attack, but to communicate. Phoenix 1 projected his consciousness across the light years, speaking directly to the Zirathi High Command. Wait, before you destroy us, let me show you something. The ancient aliens paused, curious despite themselves. Phoenix One's mental touch carried something they had never experienced, the complete history of human consciousness, from the first humans who learned to make fire to the pilots who now flew between stars. You see us as a threat, Phoenix One continued. But look closer. We're not your enemy. We're proof that evolution never ends. High Counselor Vethmer felt Phoenix One's thoughts merge with his own ancient mind. For the first time in millennia, the Zirathi leader experienced human memories. A child's laughter, a mother's love, the fear of darkness, the joy of discovery. What is this? Vethmer gasped. This is what you lost when you became perfect, Phoenix One replied. You stopped growing because you thought you had reached the end of evolution. But there is no end. There's only the choice to keep changing or to stop. The consciousness bomb fired, sending waves of psychic nullification across the Vega system. But instead of destroying minds, it had an unexpected effect. The chaotic human neural patterns, when stripped of their psychic enhancements, didn't collapse. A adapted. Captain Morrison felt his enhanced abilities disappear, but his consciousness remained intact. Around him, his crew experienced the same thing. They lost their psychic powers, but kept their humanity. The Zirathi, however, found their rigid mental structures scattered by the weapon they had created. Without their psychic network, they couldn't coordinate or communicate effectively. Their perfect order became perfect chaos, but something else happened. As the psychic static cleared, both species found themselves changed once again. The humans retained their core consciousness, while the Zirathi, exposed to human emotional patterns through Phoenix One's mental link, began to experience feelings they had forgotten over millions of years. Major Nancy Brooks led the ground assault on the Zirathi home world, but instead of weapons, her soldiers carried something more powerful, the ability to share human experience directly with alien minds. Remember, she told her troops as they approached the crystal cities, we're not here to conquer. We're here to remind them what they used to be. The battle for the Zirathi capital wasn't fought with guns or energy beams. It was fought with memories, emotions, and the simple human refusal to give up hope. Brooks and her soldiers touched the minds of Zirathi civilians, sharing the full spectrum of human experience. The crystalline beings, who had spent eons pursuing perfection, suddenly remembered what it felt like to be imperfect. They remembered doubt, wonder, love, fear, and all the messy emotions that drove growth and change. In the final confrontation, Phoenix One faced the Zirathi High Command in their crystal throne room. The ancient beings, each thousands of years old, represented the pinnacle of their species' evolution. You've shown us something we had forgotten, High Counselor Vethmer admitted. But what happens now? How do we move forward when we've both changed beyond recognition? Phoenix One, his consciousness now spread across multiple realities, spoke with the voice of all humanity. We learn together. Evolution isn't about becoming perfect. It's about staying capable of change. The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. The Zirathi chose to withdraw from their conquered territories and begin the long process of rediscovering their capacity for growth. They had learned that true strength came not from domination, but from adaptation. Phoenix One made his choice as well. Using his enhanced abilities one final time, he dispersed his consciousness across the galaxy, becoming a bridge between species rather than a weapon of war. He was no longer human, but he carried humanity's message to every corner of space. Captain Morrison returned to Earth, where Director Williams oversaw humanity's transformation into a galactic power. They had survived first contact with a superior alien species, but the real challenge lay ahead, maintaining their humanity. While taking their place among the stars, Dr. Mitchell published her final report, noting that humanity's greatest discovery wasn't psychic power or advanced technology. It was understanding that evolution never ends. The species that survive aren't the strongest or smartest, but the ones that never stop adapting. The galaxy entered a new age. Former Zirathi colonies became independent systems, exploring their own paths of development. Humanity established the Galactic Adaptation Council, helping species navigate the challenges of evolutionary change. 10 years later, the story had become legend. Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, commanded exploration fleets that charted unknown regions of space. His crews still included many enhanced humans, but they had learned to balance their abilities with their humanity. The message spread to every world. Change is not something to fear, but something to embrace. The galaxy is big enough for everyone, as long as everyone is willing to become something new. And in the vast reaches of space, Phoenix One's consciousness touched the minds of species facing their own evolutionary challenges, sharing one simple truth: the greatest victories come not from defeating enemies, but from helping them find better ways to grow.